The technological revolution will redefine life as we know it, and it's already well underway. Are you ready? Theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking tells us that artificial intelligence will be the greatest event in human history. He also said that it could spell the end of the human race. Ray Kurzweil, who together with Peter Diamandis founded Singularity University, tells us that artificial intelligence will eclipse human intelligence by 2029. That's only 11 years away. Kurzweil predicts that by the 2040s, artificial intelligence will be 1 billion times more capable than human intelligence. That's less than 30 years away. Advances in technology will create radical change in every area of human endeavor. These changes will test our competency, our sense of community, our beliefs, and our resolve. And yet today, by any objective standard, the vast majority of us are unprepared for these changes. At a time when we should be planning and preparing, we are instead divided by race, age, sex, religion, economics, and identity politics. The politics of me versus the politics of us. And we are paralyzed by political dysfunction. So now what? What do we do next? How do we survive and thrive in this brave new world? It all begins with our thoughts. In 2014, Oprah Winfrey was interviewed at Stanford University. She was asked what she had learned from the failures of her philanthropic investments in Africa. She said, "I learned that you first have to change the way a person thinks. In order to succeed," she said, "you first have to have a sense of aspiration, a sense of hopefulness." She was right. We need to instill that sense of aspiration and hopefulness in ourselves and in our children. We need to instill it in all children, including the over 4 million homeless children and the over 17.5 million fatherless children in America. Mindset is critical, and the same is true of perspective. Success and survival in the 21st century will require that we see the world and the issues we confront more clearly. We do that by broadening our perspectives. During my 30 years of practicing law, including while serving as Nevada's Attorney General, I always began each engagement the same way. I began by acquiring information. I wanted to see all sides of every issue. That view is called a helicopter perspective. It was that helicopter perspective that allowed me to solve complex problems and develop winning strategies. While a helicopter perspective has always been important, in a world that has become increasingly divisive and polarized, this unique view has become even more important. Why? Because we are now being exposed to massive amounts of highly targeted information that is specifically designed to appeal to our confirmation biases. This highly targeted information narrows and hardens our perspectives and the perspectives of others. And a narrow perspective is more likely to be inaccurate. Knowing and understanding this limitation should cause us all to pause, both in accepting what we believe as true and in judging the opinions of others. It should cause us to not only be far more tolerant of alternative perspectives, but to actually value them. and seek them out. The broader our perspective, the greater our ability to see the world and the issues we confront more clearly. Success and survival will also require that we leverage our strengths and mitigate our weaknesses. Our brains represent both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. Think of your brain as a double-edged sword. Advances in neuroscience have shown that we can sharpen that sword by increasing our IQ. We do that through practice, learning, exercise, improved nutrition, better sleep habits, and mindfulness. We do it through a commitment to lifelong learning. Advances in neuroscience have also shown that our brains are far more malleable than we ever realized. We now know that our subconscious brain profoundly affects both our thoughts and our actions, even our physiology. These discoveries highlight an area of strength, our ability to learn, and an area of weakness, our susceptibility to outside influence. One such outside influence is social media. Social media and the ability of virtually anyone to broadcast false information on a global scale directly into our cell phones represents a relatively new phenomenon. It's part of the first wave of the technological revolution, and it's already causing significant disruption. We saw the power of social media during the Arab Spring. We saw the potential threat during America's 2016 election. We see its growing significance every day in the caustic comments that fill our social media threads and create increased division among us. Social media, when paired with our brain's malleability, raises new questions with potentially far-reaching implications. Most of us believe that when we make a decision, we understand the principal factors that influenced us. Very often, nothing could be further from the truth. Research has shown the susceptibility of our subconscious brain to outside influence. Advertisers have been exploiting this vulnerability for generations. Today, any individual, corporation, or government can exploit this very same vulnerability with nothing more than a cell phone. Fortunately, studies have also shown that we have the ability to control our thoughts. Simply pausing to recognize and acknowledge your thoughts can move the brain's processing of your thoughts from the amygdala, the emotional and reactive portion of your brain, to the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for conscious and deliberate thought. Think about what this can mean in your life. We all get into arguments occasionally. Simply pausing during an argument can cause all involved parties to become less emotional and more logical. Rather than getting hooked on your thoughts by treating them as truths or facts, recognizing your thoughts for what they are, transitory packets of sensory information that may or may not represent truths or facts, will cause you to see your thoughts more clearly, less emotionally, and more logically. Rather than assuming that your view or that of your group is accurate, stopping to consider alternative perspectives that you don't normally consider can only broaden and enhance your perspective. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, success and survival in the 21st century will require that we recognize our profound interdependence. We can no longer afford to see compassion and cooperation as somehow optional or aspirational. Compassion and cooperation aren't optional. They're necessary to our mutual survivor. Nature provides many examples of how and why this is true, from our dependency when we're young and old, to the way animals and even insects behave. During heavy rains, fire ants, to avoid drowning, lock their legs and self-assemble into floating rafts. Alone, they would perish. Together, they survive. Humans behave the same way in times of crisis. We've seen this during natural disasters and during acts of terror all across the globe. Unlike the fire ant, humans have the added ability to plan and prepare. We need to use that ability to plan for our collective future, together, before a crisis strikes. So what can you do now? Do something every day to broaden your perspective. Do what you're doing here today, listening to alternative views. Be more open, flexible, and adaptive. Be an example in your community of tolerance, optimism, and compassion. And perhaps most importantly, believe. Believe in yourself, believe in your children, believe in your future, and believe in each other. Thank you.